to half an hour for each speaker. And I'll introduce each one in turn, and then once they finish speaking, obviously open for questions. Our first speaker, Galia Arieli, is a PhD research student in ethnomusicology at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Her areas of research relate to music and memory, supervised by Edwin Serusi, and her thesis deals with the reflection of the Holocaust in Israeli art, music, visual art, and poetry. Her MA research, under the supervision of Professor Judith Cohen from Tel Aviv University, was highly commended and is to be published in the IMI, the magazine of the Israel Music Institute, and in TAV magazine for music, art, and society. Her recent research papers were presented at the annual conference of the Israeli Composer Society in July last year, and at the multidisciplinary conference about the Holocaust at Haifa University in November last year. And she's going to be talking to us today about the reflection of the Holocaust in Israeli art music.
Good morning. The Holocaust has affected every single person in Israel. It is a key event in the history of the Jewish people, and a formative influence on all aspects of Israeli society, politically, socially, economically, and culturally. In my thesis, I examine how composers in Israel confront the Holocaust in their music, as well as their verbally stated attitude towards the musical confrontation with the Holocaust. The composer and critic Oded Asaf observed, quote, "The leading names of the founders' generation, Partosh, Boscovich, Seter, and others, avoided musical reference to the Holocaust. They looked forward to the future of Israeliness and did not wish, at least not publicly, to look backwards. This is a generalization, of course. The younger generations, from their immediate successors onwards, turn increasingly to this subject, and perhaps this is a normal and understandable development." End quote. Second-generation composers, however, deal with the Holocaust primarily as part of their quest for different ways of expressing the coalescing Jewish and Israelis' identity. Arik Shapira, born in Israel in 1943, feels committed to confronting the Holocaust. Quote, "My profound interest in the Holocaust transformed over the years into a sense of moral obligation. I feel even more strongly that I have a duty to write music that deals with the Holocaust, if only because of those views based on racism and hatred of the Palestinians." End quote. Reuven Serusi, born in Uruguay in 1959, expresses opposite view. Quote, "I never allow my music to deal with the Holocaust, Zionism, the wrong of the occupation, etc. In my view, there is something immoral about dealing with these topics through music. Instead of acting decisively in the real world, trying to change things, the composers stand in danger of exploiting human suffering to achieve artistic successes." End quote. Oded Asaf expressed similar reservation from another direction towards Holocaust-related music. Quote, "I feel a powerful resistance to the extroverted emotion industry surrounding the Holocaust, politically as well. Every new work that seeks to pull at my heartstring and drown me in what Kavert calls a bag of sentiments end up pushing me away entirely." End quote. Given this contradictory attitude, I wanted to find out if there are deep elements which serves as a key for the confrontation with the Holocaust, and particularly to discover if there exist spatial compositional code words for the Holocaust. I also sought to characterize the musical syntax of these works, and finally I wanted to examine how these composers confront the danger of banalization of the Holocaust, of transforming the representation of the horror into kitsch. In my study, I have chosen to focus on instrumental works with no text, on the assumption that texts provide a starting point from the composition of text music, I wish to examine if an analog starting point can be found in instrumental, non-text works. There are many ways for a composer to introduce references to the Holocaust into non-text instrumental works. A quotation of East European Jewish melodies, the use of specific evocative sonorities, the evocation of visual, sometimes abstract, or theatrical imagery, references to other artistic media through ekphrasis, quotation from different sources, mainly from the German culture, and instrumental works inspired by literary, documentary, or mythical texts. In this lecture, I demonstrate each of these approaches. My research has proven that most of the works related to the Holocaust, represented by the variety of means just mentioned, share three common elements. Firstly, they all use the Jewish melos as a code word. Just as a text serves as a starting point in vocal works, the Jewish melos serve as a starting point for instrumental works concerned with the Holocaust. Secondly, in terms of artistic syntax, they all end with a deliberately open ending, a sense of unresolved tension. Thirdly, the composers avoid the danger of banality and kitsch in their treatment of this subject by creating a sense of aesthetic distance and avoiding an overly concrete approach to programmatic writing, as I will illustrate later.
One more.
Oh, so
it's moving backwards.
Okay.
One more. One more.
So, chronologically, one of the first Holocaust-related works composed in Israel is Odeon Partosh, his score, in memoriam. Since its composition in 1946, this short work has been performed hundreds of times in all versions for viola, violin, or cello, accompanied by piano or string orchestra. Partosh based his work on Lithuanian Jewish melody, which is here on the first there. Typically dominated by two intervals, the fourth spiced by the seconds in all its varieties. The work as a whole has two phases: the Jewish melody, inflected by the new Israeli style on the one hand, and the evident inspiration from the 19th century violin concerti on the other. Another example is Yechezkel Brown, Super Ruins, for flute, string, orchestra, and timpani, written in memory of Jews of Siget, a community utterly destroyed in the Holocaust. In the introduction to the score, the composer writes, "My father of blessed memory told me this story. In the Hebrew month of Elul, at third watch before dawn, an old Jew used to pass along the streets and wake up the townspeople to say the morning prayers of Slichut. He would pass from house to house, knocking on the shutters with his stick and chanting, 'In school on.' This is the story, and this is the tune which I heard in my childhood. I keep the story in my heart and the tune reverberates 1,000-fold in my musical works. Yechezkel Brown uses a restricted motif, a rising and falling minor third, as a kind of primal Jewish melody, waving it into the entire work, with no change or development. The work's open ending resonates like an unanswered question. Just to say that this is Brown's only Holocaust-related work. He claims the composer can only respond to the Holocaust by writing a lamentation to a past world, as he sought to do in Super Ruins. The actual horrors of the Holocaust, he argues, cannot be expressed in musical sounds. The only way to confront them is through concrete music, based on a sound evocative of the events. The sounds of trains, rough and indistinct sounds in German, rattling chains, shattering glasses, barking doors, whiplashes, and so forth. Brown proposed such a soundtrack of the 81 Club, a 1974 documentary, though his suggestion was utterly rejected. Other composers tried to confront the Holocaust through incorporation of visual elements. A work that evoked visual imagery is in Am Leaf String Quartet. Leaf composed it in 1978 as a concrete piece. The choreographer Tamar Mialnik identified its potential to evoke visual imagery and obtained the composer's permission to use it for a dance piece intended for Holocaust Memorial Day called A Brand Plucked Out of the Fire. Leaf sought to reflect the heterophony of the synagogue throughout the piece. He allows choir-like passage to rise above the heterophonic texture. This is like choir-like, reminding listeners of Cantor's voice rising above the hubbub of the congregation. Leaf represents the Jewish melos by taking it apart to its individual components. Here it's just taking it apart. The intervals of the second in the aleatoric section, embellishments, long trills, glissando, the sign motif, viewing them as if through a microscope. burned into the composer consciousness, its treatment reflected through prism and filters. In his work, Jewish prayer and Jewish faith converge on a desire to take something ancient and give it a new sound. The work unites the composer's uniquely personal aesthetic values with a system of common yet abstract association related to Jewish people tradition. This sense of completeness is compromised, however, by the work's open ending. The instruments are unified into a single sound, the note do, reminiscent of a siren, which vanished gradually. Another way of approaching the Holocaust is through inspiration of documentary testimony. A prominent example is Abel Ehrlich's testimony for two flutes. The testimony, composed in 1962, was his only work which refers directly to the Holocaust. It is based on a chilling testimony at the Adolf Eichmann trial a year earlier. After one of the periodic reparation raids on the Warsaw ghetto, a woman discovered her 3 sons in a truck taking children to the gas chambers. She pleaded with the officer in charge to set her children free, and he, with a smile, agreed to let her take one of them. The 3 boys were stretching out their arms to her as if imploring, "Take me." And the mother, unable to decide which to choose, was forced to watch the truck as it carried all 3 away to their bitter fate. The work's scoring for 2 flutes already ensures a degree of restrained intimacy. The composer imbues this medium with considerable, even horrific power, but he circumvents the problematic pathos and kitsch that often characterizes extravagant, richly orchestrated works. Ehrlich avoided simplistic symbolism by writing the work for only 2 instruments, thus avoiding a direct representation of each of the 3 children. He does